Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Bilgecast Wrestling Podcast. I'm Ollie Johnson, here with my colleagues Sam Congrave and Ian Burrows. How you doing, guys?
I'm warm. I'm sweating so much at this point. Well, you can tell it's coming up to summer.
Why is everyone in this country such a fucking wimp when it comes to summer?
Yeah.
I don't mind. I mean, come on, Ollie. I'm the guy who went. If you remember me from college, Ian will probably remember this. I was wearing a trench coat in the sun while people were literally screaming, "How can you wear this?"
I remember.
Yeah, you had like an Undertaker-style trench coat on in summer. Didn't you pass out at one point?
No. That was the scary part. I was just standing there while everyone else was begging for water.
I thought you did, and no, hold on. You went to Starbucks, who gave you a free frappuccino or something, and then asked how you hadn't passed out.
Yeah, that was it. They gave me a free drink. What? Did they give me a free drink?
Yeah, I seem to remember. I don't think I was with you at the time, but you were on your way over to my house, and you told me about it. That must have been... it must have been about a decade ago.
I think it was more out of admiration.
Yeah.
Like, you're wearing a leather trench coat and you're walking in this? Dear God. Maybe they didn't want to be an accessory to murder. Well, even so, speaking of memories, Raw!
Yes, that's an interesting segue. So, the Member Berries edition of Raw.
Yeah, basically, it's... Yeah, here's my honest thought. I'll do the short answer before we go into things. My short answer is, that's cool, but what does any of this mean in the long run?
Yeah, that's my response too. Cool, but why though?
I could refer to this episode of Raw as either the reunion special, or its more accurate term, Desperation, Hey Desperation, which is funny considering that right after this episode aired, Triple H and Vince McMahon sold all their WWE stock.
Wait, so is Vince still in charge?
I don't know what's happened, but him and Triple H have just sold all of their stock of WWE. And Triple H apparently has been in talks with a lot of Japanese promotions.
Huh, that's interesting.
I don't know where this is going, but we will discuss this a bit later because I think we need to just get on with what happened because...
Just before we do, though, a little bit of news. Jey Uso has been arrested again. That's unfortunate, especially after that rap battle with John Cena, where he directly referenced the Usos getting arrested. Oh.
Oh, well, Jey just had to one-up Cena in some way.
No, jokes aside, that is a very unfortunate thing to happen.
Well, apparently he's very uncooperative with the police. So, there you go.
I don't know about that. Jeff Hardy was also arrested not too long ago, but there is... Oh, what was I going to say? There is reason to suspect that he was arrested because of the way he looks, rather than anything he was actually doing.
Oh, for God's sake.
Like, he was in... I forget the state, but...
You're telling me white people can be arrested for looking the way they do?
Well, he was in a state that doesn't, like... You know, he looks a certain way. He's got, like, expanded earlobes, covered in tattoos, like, long coloured hair... And he was publicly intoxicated, and it has been said by various people I've seen on Twitter that if the same thing happened in the same place to, say, EC3, he would have been fine. But, so, you know, I think we can have some sympathy for Jeff in this instance. Yeah. Not that I wouldn't have sympathy for anyone who has trouble with these things, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this time it's a big deal. Like, he has been arrested for far worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when I saw the headline, Jeff Hardy arrested, I was like, oh god, what's happened? And then it was just, like, public intoxication that was probably made worse by the fact that he doesn't look socially conventional.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Raw.
Well, after the John Cena rap battle thing, there was a lot of the. I think we should just get all the 24/7 title stuff out of the way.
Yeah, it was a good week for the 24/7 titles.
Drake Maverick won the title from R-Truth, and there was much rejoicing.
Yay.
Then Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe recreated their hardcore championship level shenanigans from 2000.
That was
with
fun.
Pat Patterson winning the title, smiling, and then getting attacked by Gerald Briscoe, who then pinned him.
Yep.
Gerald Briscoe then got kicked in the gut by Kelly later on after hugging her. All the balls, you couldn't really tell. She then pinned him over dramatically. Yeah. She then ran into Candice Michelle Melina, which I forgot. I honestly am surprised Melina was backstage. That was the biggest surprise. Candice is an even bigger surprise to why she's even there.
Apparently Melina's reputation is a lot better now than it was back when she was in WWE.
Apparently she doesn't even understand why she had a bad reputation to begin with, but we all know why. Anyway, Candice Michelle was... I instantly forgot she ever existed. Then she attacked Kelly, won the title, then Alundra Blaze came out and basically murdered her, then took the belt off and then gave it and then sold it, went to do her whole dropping the title in the trash, which is honestly where it belongs at this point, then selling it to Ted DiBiase.
Oh, you just don't like R-Truth.
Then, getting back to, the disdain of my existence, Drake Maverick won the title, and then R-Truth wins it again. The status quo is back to where it was, and we're back to the same crap we've had for the last few months.
He's absconded with Drake Maverick's wife as well.
Yes, Miss Maverick.
He got in the limo and drove off with his wife in there.
Why doesn't she just attack him and get the title herself? That's the only way this is going to end right. But then again, R-Truth did abandon Carmella, which is kind of, symbolic of how WWE feels about Carmella right now anyway.
Yeah. I like the 24/7 title stuff that they're doing. I don't mind that it's,
constantly
centered on
about
R-Truth at the moment.
It's centered around 2 people only and no one else.
Well, it's only been a couple of months. Give it time.
A couple of months? Ollie, by this point, there should have been at least 27 different people holding the belt.
There have been 15. I think.
That's still not... Yeah, but Ollie, that's literally been only in the last few weeks. Most of them have been R-Truth.
10 of them have been R-Truth. Well, no. There have been about 30 or so title reigns, 10 of which are R-Truth, about 4 of which are Drake Maverick, 2 are Jinder Mahal, and everyone else has 1, I think. I looked this up a while ago.
I mean, Mick Foley was apparently going to challenge for it, but then, of course, The Fiend got him.
Yeah. No, that was the legend spot I quite, agreed with. That's what you should do with a legend spot. Put someone else over.
Yeah, speaking of that, Alundra Blaze took to Twitter shortly afterwards, and, oh, God, Lacey's fucked her career over horribly. Basically, well, she shit on the company and everyone who works there pretty much right after Alundra. She basically shit on all the legends and basically called them she called them nasties basically. And Alundra responded with, "You'd be lucky to even be considered a legend. You're basically you're a failure who got kicked out of the military. You live in a trailer park and you drag your family, your kid and your husband around after you. Desperately trying to get attention."
I don't know. Legend seems like a pretty arbitrary designation at this point.
Well, then, of course, everyone else decided to jump in with, oh, damn, Alundra just owned Lacey. And Lacey decided to basically took the Jamie Marchi levels of humour and basically gave the same answer an 8-year-old would give, to the point where Alundra ended the whole thing out of pure...
Dude, can you leave this whole drama shit out of the podcast, please?
Well, it's what Lacey said afterwards that fucked her over. When she said, "I don't care about wrestling. I don't care about any of you people. I didn't even know who most of the people were until I came to work here." But she basically screamed that she doesn't give a shit about wrestling. She never did and still doesn't really care about the business or anything in it.
Well, it's a good thing she's working for it then, isn't it?
Yeah, that was the ultimate response of Alundra pretty much saying, "Oh, wow." I mean, when she finishes acting like her shoe size, we'll talk about if there'll ever be a match between us, but dear God. this is pathetic beyond words, and just left it at that. And most people were like, well, that's Lacey just fucked over a career. Nothing screws you over faster than saying, I don't even care about the business and never did until I got signed. I mean, that's how Enzo lost most of his respect from people backstage.
Well, wrestling is an environment where, your
you
reputation with your colleagues is what you have to stand on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I don't care. I don't give a shit what people are saying on Twitter. Vince does.
Well, the thing is, Ollie, that
Vince does.
Your behaviour on Twitter and how you do shit can affect you. I mean, look what it's done to Seth Rollins in the last month.
Well, it can look bad on the company depending on how bad it is. Yeah.
That's the problem with Twitter, is that you represent the company no matter if you're an independent contractor, and it can affect it bad on you. I mean, Seth Rollins behaved like a 5-year-old on Twitter, and that came back to bite him. I mean, granted, he did apologise for his shitty behaviour, but it doesn't change a thing. Randy Orton can get away with it a bit because it's Randy fucking Orton, and he knows what they're going to do, fucking fire him. I don't think he cares anymore. But Lacey has got nothing to her name, so really she can't afford to do Randy Orton or levels of shit on Twitter.
Yeah, that's true.
Moving briskly on, they tried to create some drama between Natalya and Becky, and it really just didn't. It doesn't feel natural. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think Natalya's coming out of this one, but
I think she'll be all right. Like Natalya's
been on the bottom run for a very long time, and that's sad.
How can I put this delicately? Natalya has nowhere to go but up. She'll be fine.
Yeah, that's the depressing thing. I mean, once you've done a farting gimmick, the only way you can go is up.
Yeah, it is tragic how they've misused her over the years, but I think this could be a good thing. Like, a good match can do wonders for someone.
The thing is, Natalya's good. We can all agree that Natalya is good.
Yeah.
The problem is she's never been allowed to, even when she was the champion, she's never been allowed to, feel like she deserves it.
Well, maybe now's the time. I
don't know. I mean, Becky, let's face it, just carried Seth Rollins and everyone else in that horrible, fatal, tag team storyline.
Look, don't pretend you never liked Seth Rollins just because.
I do like Seth. I do like Seth. It's just that, unfortunately, I think we can honestly sit there and say that his latest reign with the Universal title has been a failure.
It has left some to be desired. Yes.
Now, it isn't his fault. It's like 20 to 30% his fault. But it's the booking and the way WWE decided to emphasize, hey, look, Becky Lynch is a bigger star. Let's add her to the thing, and forcing him to continue a feud with Baron Corbin longer than was necessary.
Yeah, well, Baron Corbin is kind of the problem there. Seth, I know, is a company man, but he is coming across as a bit of a dick lately.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to say.
Let's face it, he took shots at Will Ospreay and Dean Ambrose when he really shouldn't have. And that came back to bite him. Yeah. Especially since he knows, full well, he can't get any payoff for it. You're not going to have a Dean Ambrose-Seth Rollins match again. And Will Ospreay, well, if you pay attention to Will Ospreay's career since Ricochet left the independents, Ricochet has actually gone down in terms of his stock since leaving the indies, whereas Will Ospreay has actually improved himself greatly since leaving.
Well, signing with WWE is always a gamble if you're an indie star, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. But also on Raw, I'd also like to throw this one under the bus. Seth Rollins got dragged in with the only person he actually had a good match with when he was the champion, AJ, who's now the club is now the OG, and to shit on the OC, they threw out the DX for reasons. Sans Billy Gunn.
Cool, but why?
Sans Billy Gunn for
don't
reasons.
Don't Triple H and Seth Rollins not like each other? Like what?
I don't know. Oh, and also Kevin Nash and Scott.
And why were the NWO there?
Yeah, why were they even there apart from the whole click thing, which the Click isn't something to be admired. I think that needs to be made a point. Is the Click was an actual, according to most people who lived through it, the Click were an actual living embodiment of cancer. They did significant amounts of damage to the industry, and considering it was 95 when they were in power, yeah, it doesn't correlate to the Click being a good thing.
Everything's
And
good
then
if
they
WWE
just-
presents it as good. The thing that was weird for me is, what was it? Mike Kanellis was having a match. Was it Mike Kanellis having a match with Rey Mysterio?
I don't. No, it was Sami Zayn.
Sami Zayn. Sorry, I don't know why I got those confused.
Because they're both skinheads now.
Yeah, they look similar. That must be it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he goes out, and who should stop him on the ramp? But well, first Rob Van Dam. Impact
Who worked
contracted
for TNA Impact,
Rob
by
Van
the way.
Dam. Yeah, I was just saying. Impact contracted Rob Van Dam, I might add. And then Sergeant Slaughter. And then... Who was the third one? The fourth one was Kurt Angle, but who was the third one?
Hey, the Hurricane.
The Hurricane. Oh, how did I forget that? But why those four at once? Like...
Yeah, what have they got to do with Rey Mysterio at all, apart from maybe Kurt Angle?
That legendary stable that never existed.
People. Yeah, it was like a mixture of it was like the Village People in terms of how out of place it was.
No, you know what that was? That was the Apple.
Oh fucking hell, the Apple.
Yeah, do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the Apple,
Santino Marella was there, yes.
Marella turned up to. Oh yeah, apparently they're planning to open a Canadian wrestling school for WWE, and they want Santino to coach it.
Okay.
Santino, who has a terrible reputation when it comes to training.
Oh.
Santino, who, you remember the Boogeyman situation while he was training when he lied about what class he was actually in.
Yeah. Ian, do you have any thoughts so far on anything? Whoa! Oh, I don't know what that was. There was suddenly a loud feedback in my headphones. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ian, you were saying?
It was quite the reunion.
It was. But also, like, you know, Sergeant Slaughter, the Hurricane, Kurt Angle, and Rob Van Dam. Why?
Yeah.
Why them four?
I don't know.
It was rather funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I know what it is. It's just, we've got all these legends here. We've got to put them somewhere. But come on. You can do better than that. Yeah. And then Rey Mysterio, of course.
Is this like publicity for the next 2K game?
Yeah, possibly.
You say that. Speaking of 2K, Kurt Angle, here's a little secret for when Kurt Angle's involved in anything.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle is terrible at keeping a secret. Now, you might not. I know you don't buy the collector's editions of any of the games. That's kind of my area, sadly.
Yeah.
But recently, Kurt Angle mentioned that he had been sent a bunch of 2K20 things to sign, and he put on Twitter that he's tired from signing all these 2K20 things. And then Edge responded to him with, "Yeah, you too, huh?"
Oh.
So the theory is at the moment that there's going to be a Hall of Fame. It's going to be a Hall of Fame edition, and you're going to get a random signed placard or something from a Hall of Famer. So Edge might be one of them. Kurt Angle might be one of them. You might get Stone Cold possibly. So we'll see how that goes.
That's cool. I might actually get that if that's the case.
I got the Ric Flair edition. Trust me, I do not regret buying the Ric Flair edition because the box alone is fucking awesome, and the fact I have a Hall of Fame ring and a piece of Ric Flair's robe.
Oh wow, that is amazing. Didn't you get a piece of the Takeover ring mat at one point?
I've got that. Yeah, I've got a piece of the NXT, the first UK NXT Takeover show. I've got a piece of that ring mat, and I think I have Big Cass's autograph. I have Shinsuke Nakamura's autograph from the NXT edition. I also have the Undertaker's from the 2K14 edition.
You're getting quite the collection there.
I know I should frame these fucking things.
Yeah.
I also have a limited edition statue of Demon Finn Balor that came with the NXT edition.
Okay, so where were we on the?
Well, we just finished the the Legends League
Yeah,
turning up to help to not so much help Rey Mysterio so much as stop Sami Zayn from running away.
yeah,
Should we name
So
it
Rey
Legend?
Mysterio beat him anyway and did a frog splash, and they decided since Rob Van Dam was there to say it was a tribute to Rob Van Dam,
yeah,
because why not? Even though it's always been a tribute to Eddie.
yeah. That's yeah. Although he did do the three, the RVD hand signs before doing it, so I suppose you could call it a tribute to Rob Van Dam. Uh, let's see what else happened. Um, the
Apart
Fiend
from
attacked Mick Foley. That was actually a really good segment. Like, you know, unqualified. That was a great segment of this show when the
Bray
Fiend.
Bray Wyatt has been limited, but it's been effective.
Yeah,
Is all I have to say about the whole thing with Bray. Is Bray has suffered a lot of shit. I just need to get this off my chest, but Bray has suffered a lot of shit. Some very horrific shit from WWE. Let's face it, he's been Husky Harris. That didn't go down well. He's been Bray Wyatt, which had potential, so much potential, and then thrown down the toilet.
well, he was over
And
as
then
hell.
they've done it perfect. This has been perfect the way they've done it. The Firefly Funhouse. It's actually one of the few things in wrestling that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
I mean, it's taken the PG thing of a kiddies show and made it hilarious.
Yeah.
Hell, I actually sat there and made my mother-in-law watch it with my daughter. And at one point, my mother-in-law actually thought she hadn't taken a medication at one point. With the flashes and stuff happening, and then just like the Fiend appearing. She actually thought she hadn't taken her meds.
What was the response to the Muscle Man dance?
That when she realised by that point we'd gotten far enough into it that she realised it wasn't the meds. This was actually meant to be the segment.
Yeah.
And she found it to be hilarious. She was even singing along with it at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, shortly after that, we watched Heavy Machinery, and she was trying to see, because she found out one of them was from Superior, Wisconsin, and she wanted to see if she actually recognized him, because she used to live there. I said I think he's a bit too young.
Right.
Follow my voice. You don't have a choice. I love the whole. I still love his Twitter that he apologizes to everyone. I think after he attacked Mick, he even went on Twitter to apologize to Mick. I still love his whole thing of apologizing to The Rock and saying, "You were right. My obsession with pizza pockets was a serious problem, and I thank you for pointing it out." And then The Rock's just going, "I'm glad you're man enough to admit it. It's really big of you to admit that you have a problem when it comes to eating pizza pockets, but we all suffer with it. Also, P.S. You're batshit crazy, and I love you." Kevin Owen, did Shane do anything this week?
Yeah, on SmackDown. He bragged about how he was going to beat up Kevin Owens. Not much came of it. I to be honest, my eyes glaze over and I tune out when Shane McMahon comes on. I barely remember a thing.
Yeah, I can completely sympathize.
Yeah, just I'm over it. Just
Yeah, I'm done with Shane, and the thing is, WWE seems to be completely sold on it. You know, they seem to know that we seem to think we know what's coming.
Yeah.
Also, poor Samoa Joe taking an RKO taking a loss from Roman.
Yeah.
That got
And also an RKO on SmackDown. Yeah, Joe's getting kind of shafted lately. This is unfortunate.
It is.
Yeah.
So, other than that on Raw, Austin did his whole thing, and his segment seemed very forced.
I liked it. It seemed
Well,
alright.
he made special emphasis on the whole The arena was full and that everyone was paying attention to this show. My only disappointment was Jim Ross turned down the invite to appear.
Yeah, that would
And
have been cool.
Austin didn't stun anyone. But get this morning, The Sun announced that Austin has said he's tempted to return to WWE full time.
How? Like,
Yeah, well,
in
that's the
what
thing.
context?
I think they'll do what they did in 2003. Make him an on-screen authority figure, because that's what they did when Eric Bischoff was basically sucking as general manager. They brought Steve Austin back full time because by that point he'd forgiven the company for the whole Brock Lesnar situation.
Right.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? The one where he walked out on the company because they wanted him to lose to Brock Lesnar on Raw, and he had no problem with losing to Brock. He just thought it should have been a pay-per-view, not a free show.
Yeah.
So then he walked out on the company, but then he kind of realized it was a stupid idea, came back, but he couldn't wrestle anymore anyway after all that. So he kind of just became, and the whole thing with The Rock had fucked him over. So he'd kind of just come back as an on-screen thing. So all he had to do was throw the occasional stunner and do the occasional catchphrase, and that's really all he needed.
Yeah.
But to be fair on it, Ollie, let's be brutally honest, it'd be better than Shane McMahon in authority. And it's perfect considering that Kevin Owens has ditched the pull-up powerbomb.
Yeah.
And is now going for the stunner. Which Shane sells poorly, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. Shane doesn't do anything particularly well in the ring, though, does he?
Shane is, and I hate using this term, I really do. He's a glorified stuntman. He is known for one spot, and that is jumping off of things, and that's really all he does. That and a little weird dance that, is universally mocked.
Yeah. Right, so what else happened? SmackDown. The whole Randy Orton Kofi Kingston thing, it's going well as far as feuds go. There's clearly a right guy to win. Kofi Kingston is basically what they wanted Roman Reigns to be. So.
Well, have you noticed as well with the Kevin Owens thing that this week Roman Reigns got out the ring to just give him, the spotlight? Because let's face it, at this point, Roman isn't the star.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: it's a sad thing. Kevin Owens is the star that they wanted, Roman to be, but Roman can never be. The sad fact is that I don't have any personal gripe against Roman. I completely agree with you that he's the victim of the booking, and he's basically where he's going to be. He's never going to get any better than he is, and he's a mid-card guy at best. He barely scratches the merits of being a main event guy. He's never going to, no matter what they do, he's never going to get over to the level they want him to. Whereas Kevin Owens, he has that fan base behind him, and, Roman can do his whole, I don't like Shane McMahon, you can kiss my ass. But that's literally all he's been doing for years is the whole, I don't like the authority thing because I'm a good guy archetype. That's all he needs to be. But Kevin Owens actually is impassioned, kind of like what The Miz was before he literally did nothing.
Yeah.
I know, Ollie. I know you and me argued for almost a year over the whole The Miz thing and how he's gotten better. And I won't doubt that, but it's one thing to go from crawling to suddenly hopping, in a foot race. And sadly, that's a point. Ziggler's got a feud with The Miz now. That's a thing that's happening.
Yeah, I don't know.
Triggered by, wait for it, attacking someone's family. The ultimate sin.
Yep.
I mean, you can break someone's leg, you can set them on fire, you can cause harm to them in some way, take their title. everything. But the second you mention the family, that is low. That is worse.
Yeah, you do not talk about someone's kids.
Oh
Like,
no. That's what I mean. That makes you work. I mean, you know, I can't. I'm trying to think of a comparison that'd be funny, but it's just so ridiculous that's the smoking gun. That is the line.
Yeah, it happens a lot in wrestling.
I know it happens a lot, and that's what worries me. It worries me that that's their go-to, but they're doing it a lot lately. I mean, Joe did it to Rey Mysterio and to Roman, and Drew McIntyre did it to Roman Reigns. Speaking of Drew McIntyre, ouch to Cedric Alexander.
Yeah.
Also, I'm surprised a show that Hulk Hogan was on didn't have him prominently featured.
Yeah, well, I think they know by now that he's never going to be what he was since the incident. Like, before then, no matter what card he was on, the crowd would pop for him. But
not only that, he really wasn't that big of a deal with Raw anyway.
Yeah.
You got to remember that Raw debuted in 1993. By the time Raw debuted, Hogan kind of wasn't even around the company that much, and he buggered off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you remember WrestleMania this year, he came out, and the mood kind of deflated. Like, that incident with the recording has damaged him beyond repair, and I think they know that at this point.
It's not just that, Ollie. It's everything in the last few years. No, I think the recording was the tipping point.
Yeah.
You got to remember, he buggered off to basically, he left WWE and went to TNA, and basically the TNA reputation ruined his value beyond words. I mean, let's face it, Ollie. The whole walking out of TNA with Dixie Carter hanging onto his leg was the perfect example.
Well, TNA was fine before he got there, to be honest. Like, you know.
Yeah, but that's not just your opinion. That's everyone's opinion on the matter. This company was doing fine. And even Jeff Jarrett even said to Eric Bischoff and Hogan that the company was doing fine and even thriving before they even put their fingers on it.
Yeah.
All it did was reconfirm all the stories that were said about WCW, because, again, that was all in the air for years, was, well, could you really blame Hogan and Bischoff? And then TNA proved that, oh, yeah, you can.
Yep. Right.
Speaking of, Paul Heyman really doesn't have as much power as we like to think he has.
Yeah, I had wondered about that. I had wondered how much input they actually have on the show.
Well, my understanding is the decisions aren't really, theirs per se. They can make suggestions, but they can't, they don't have final say. Vince still has the final say. I mean, he rewrote all of SmackDown just this week. Well, Vince did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Ember Moon turning heel. That happened.
Did it? I don't think I noticed that.
The Ember Moon had a match with, with Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
However, Bayley came out and caused the distraction, so she rolled her up. We all cheer because, yay! She hangs out with Bayley, then she threw Bayley into the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Let her get beat up, then hit an eclipse on her, and then hit an eclipse, which I'm just going to say this right now. Ember, sweetie, I know you're not listening to this, but you've got to come up with a new finisher. That move will fuck up your hips beyond belief. I mean, you're doing what Hogan used to do, effectively, to your lower body, but you're doing it at a higher altitude, and he can barely walk due to that move now.
Right.
I'm just saying that the way, because she lands arse first on the mat, and Hogan's entire body now, the reason he cannot do a leg drop anymore and cannot do any of the stuff or even do any physical segments is because he did that move so much over the years, it damaged his body. And that was just from him jumping and landing. This is from someone jumping off the top rope and landing. It's gonna knacker your hips.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say is that, I mean, I think it's okay to change some finishes. I mean, Kevin Owens doing the stunner, I think it's fine considering the stunner really hasn't been used much since Austin retired.
Uh-huh. That's true. And, well, everyone takes the move from somewhere.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are some, inventive ones. I mean, AJ Styles has the Styles Clash, so he has that to his name.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre's finisher was created by accident. And so was Jake Roberts, to be honest.
Right.
So I think that it's fine for Kevin. I think Kevin's becoming apart from Kofi, I think he's becoming the biggest star in WWE right now.
Yeah. Right, well, is there much else to say? I mean, the feud between Miz and Dolph Ziggler, they had Shawn Michaels come out. And
oh, yeah, that whole thing. I mean, I know this is odd, but I was very happy to see Shawn Michaels get hit with his own finisher, effectively. I don't think that's ever really happened.
I was happy to see Shawn in general, and what he said to Dolph Ziggler did actually make me sort of, he said, you know what's really embarrassing? Because Dolph was saying to Shawn how it was embarrassing how quickly he clamoured for the one more appearance thing. Shawn waited years after retiring before he even thought about it. Like, if we're talking about the Saudi Arabia thing, like, Shawn retired in what year was it?
I don't know.
That was almost 10 years ago.
I would like to correct one thing from Shawn, though.
What?
Dolph Ziggler was not compared to him to begin with. Dolph was compared to Billy Gunn for the longest possible time.
Yeah, well, that's only because he looks like him.
Yeah, I mean, Shawn Michaels-wise, yeah, a wannabe Shawn Michaels. Yeah, throw Chris Jericho in there, throw Shawn Michaels' cousin Matt Bentley in there, throw every blonde person who's ever thrown a super kick into there.
Yeah, well, when your use of a move is that iconic, you kind of have that right.
I guess, but I mean, granted, Andre the Giant used to use the tombstone a lot, but it's an Undertaker thing, so I take your point. But the point is that it's only been in recent years he's been compared to Shawn Michaels because he started using the super kick.
Yeah, as a finisher, no less.
Well, the fact that it's actually a finish, I mean, you have no idea how many times the super kick is just used as a regular move.
Yeah, well, especially now, and especially on the indies.
Well, the Young Bucks especially. I mean, super kick party is a thing.
Yep.
I mean, watch any Young Bucks match and count the amount of super kicks they do in one match.
Uh-huh. Ian, what did you think of SmackDown in general?
Well, I say what I always say, it's not as good as it used to be.
Though we have to praise one segment. The Firefly Funhouse bit where Finn Balor had his challenge accepted by Bray Wyatt.
Yep.
Yes, that was a good bit.
Yeah, very
good. We've got a match for some. Okay, so our matches for SummerSlam so far are Seth Rollins versus Lesnar again.
Yeah. I don't care.
Randy Orton versus Kofi Kingston, though this time, yeah, you know what? I honestly didn't really buy into Randy's promo this time. I honestly don't think he gives a shit because his entire thing stemmed from, well, I got to have 18 years on top because I was Randy Orton. I didn't need to put on a fake Jamaican accent and do get pancakes and wiggle my ass to get a championship.
Kofi was always that over, though. They always cheered him. He might not have always been as over as he is now, but...
yeah, I will agree that the New Day got him over more than it should, more than anything else. But Kofi, I'd like to remind everyone, and you all agree with me because you were there watching at the time.
Yeah.
Kofi was over as all hell at one point. He was on fire.
Yeah.
To a point where it would have been a stupid idea to not put the world title on him.
And yet they
And
didn't.
they decided not to because Randy Orton threw a temper tantrum, which is what Randy does, and used his pull backstage to stop Kofi getting the championship.
I think it was bold of Kofi in the promo to reference that. I mean, I imagine it was scripted, but, well, of course it was scripted, but, yeah,
It's not just because it's scripted. I will have to. This is one of the only times you're going to hear me say this, but just because it's scripted doesn't mean it isn't true.
Yeah, and it was bold to bring it up because that's well, Randy Orton famously denied it at the time. He said he didn't have any pull backstage, which
That's bullshit. Randy had pull. That's why he got away with all the shit he did. Because keep in mind, it was also him who got Ken Kennedy fired.
What might have been.
Yeah, he got Ken Kennedy fired for one botch.
Although, like,
it's not everyone else's fault that Randy Orton is so actually fucking fragile. See, that's the thing that people forget. Randy is fragile as all hell because of his hypermobile shoulders.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, Triple H has dislocated it accidentally at some point, and then of course there's his hepatitis issue.
Should he be wrestling with hepatitis?
Oh he's had it. Yeah, basically his dad had hepatitis, and then just kept it quiet and wrestled with hepatitis, and it passed down to Randy. Funnily enough. Basically, he bled on The Undertaker at one point, and Undertaker found out that he had hepatitis, so he went fucking apeshit at Randy and Bob backstage, and that got Randy in a bit of trouble during their feud. And I'm honestly surprised Brock Lesnar, knowing all this, Brock actually did legitimately blade him open.
Right.
I'm honestly surprised because Randy actually said it was okay for Brock to bust him open legitimately because Brock apparently knew a way to do it without actually cracking his skull. And lo and behold, Brock did in a sight that actually made my wife vomit.
Oh, God, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I was like...
That was at a SummerSlam, actually.
Yeah, that was actually so horrific that Chris Jericho apparently intervened backstage right after that happened.
Yeah, saying, what the fuck are you doing? Sort of. Yeah.
Well, it's Brock Lesnar. The guy is known for just doing whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
Oh, lordy. But I will say for SmackDown, Raw suffered from the fact that it was, oh, I remember these guys. You remember? Oh, I remember.
I remember.
SmackDown, I mean, we're 3 weeks away from SummerSlam, so the build has got to happen. But in terms of matches, again, we've got Seth and Brock. So we've got that match done. We've got Kofi and Randy. We've got Natalya and Becky. We've got Ember Moon and Bayley, and I think Charlotte's in that match as well, for reasons, I think.
Yeah.
So we've got that match. We've got Finn Balor and The Fiend. The question is, will we actually have a thing where the Demon actually loses clean for the first time? Will The Fiend be the one to do it? And I think that's about it. I don't know what's going on with the tag division at this point. I don't think they've made a decision. I don't know if they're even going to do anything with the women's tag team titles because, let's face it, I can see it going to a cage match eventually or a match where they can't get counted out. I feel like we're going to get more shenanigans than we need with the Iconics, to be honest. Also, recently, Paige took a shot at WWE, but it was more about the whole issue with WWE UK and it not hiring her brothers. She said, WWE need to clean their shit up and hire my brothers, which, if the Fighting with My Family has taught us anything, it's that they weren't physically ready to be in an actual wrestling company anyway.
Well, they were pretty unfit, to be honest.
Well, the movie, I haven't watched all of it yet. I have heard Paige wanted nothing to do with the industry, but then got into it a bit later. She got accepted and her brother didn't, and he had a lot of actual problems. I don't know how much of the movie is sensationalized.
Well,
Yeah.
I watched the documentary before the movie, and you know what Zach did after he heard the news that he didn't get in.
What?
He went straight to the pub.
Well, that's cliche if ever I've heard it.
And he's in the pub having a drink, talking like, "Oh, I'm just going to stay home and start my own legacy."
To be fair
Yeah,
to Zach,
yeah,
WWE has never been great with British wrestlers, ever.
no,
And this was before, they got Pete Dunne and everything in. If you were a woman, it was different. But if you're a man, William Regal is the one exception apart from maybe Bulldog. But Bulldog had the whole Hart family behind him.
Wade Barrett should have won the title.
Wade Barrett was wasted potential.
William Regal deserved to win the world title at least once, but Wade Barrett should have won it.
I agree that the thing is that, at least from the words of Nick Atlas, who you might remember as Magnus, there was actually prejudice in the company against the Brits. And Vince Russo repeatedly asked him why he was even in a wrestling company to begin with, why he even bothered. And he said at one point he just wanted to be a champion. And then Vince Russo told him, "Let me level with you. Brits don't get to be world champions." That was Vince Russo's actual wording to him, was that the Brits are never meant to be the world champions.
Which means that one inevitably will be, because Vince Russo said otherwise.
Well, you say that, and then of course Magnus became the TNA world champion for all the good that means, and he also was the NWA champion.
Yeah, cool.
Which he did lose to Cody Rhodes at the All In pay-per-view, and then won it back. But he has been a world champion.
Yeah, cool.
Now, I know that the NWA title these days has very little credibility, mainly due to the fact there's like 5 or 6 different lineages to follow. Because of, there's a load of shenanigans that I don't have time to explain. But there's some people count some legacies, some people don't count, some people count other legacies, so it gets jumbled. But I still think the title has I think it's one of the few belts in the world that is still considered a world title. I consider the NWA, the WWE, and even the IWGP Championship to be world heavyweight titles.
Yeah.
I mean, you may agree. I mean, I don't count the TNA one anymore, but, the Impact Championship anymore, it doesn't really count.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can understand that.
But yeah, SmackDown, I do like that Kofi did get his finisher in on Randy. I did like that they did that bit where Randy RKO'd Joe, but then he went to RKO Kofi and he couldn't do it because he kept bragging that I will end this whole Kofi Kingston thing in 3 seconds. Because he's been doing that whole, I can hit the RKO out of anywhere and all it will take is the one to take you down. However, every time he says that, he loses the match to the person he's, fighting. I mean, he did the same thing to AJ Styles and AJ fucking wrecked him.
Well, yeah. There is only one right guy to win this match. Like, there's...
Yeah, the thing is, Randy gains nothing from it, and to be honest, I think the thing is, Kofi is so over at this point, you could be forgiven for forgetting that Randy even works there.
Yeah. Well, a 13th world title run is not going to do anything for Randy. Yeah.
Yeah, like, the fact that he's held
he's at that point where, it's just, it'll just be so much window dressing at that point.
Well, look, he gains nothing from a world title thing at the expense of someone else.
Yeah, whereas Kofi would actually, there's no guarantee that Kofi is ever getting that title back once he loses it.
Well, there's that, and you've also got to remember at this time, WWE is in what I like to call desperation. We need to be careful with what we do.
which they would be with or without AEW on the horizon, because Fox is pissed off with them allegedly.
The ratings are, again, we've said it on several podcasts, the ratings are the lowest they've ever been.
Yeah.
Which is their fault more than anything else.
Yeah. Well,
and
it's the way that from everything you've told me, the way that their creative meetings are conducted, and I use that word in the loosest possible sense, is just ludicrous. Like,
yeah.
I mean, doesn't everything have to go through, like, loads of people before it gets to Vince? And he's
basically,
the only one whose opinion matters anyway.
Yeah, Vince's opinion is the only one that matters, and the thing is that you can make suggestions on what you want to do with, like, creative and whatnot, but they've got to pass it through other people, and there's no guarantee it will get to Vince, and if it does, it might not even be in the way that you expressed it. According to John Moxley, he would ask certain things, and they would say, "We'll let Vince know," or they'll make the assumption themselves that Vince wouldn't like that, or no, Vince won't agree to that, and then just shoot you down. And the only way to actually do it, because Chris Jericho told him the only way you are going to get anything done in this day and age is to go to Vince personally and suggest it, because that's what Jericho had to do every time he wanted to do anything, was book a flight to Connecticut, arrange a meeting with Vince, meet up with him, and then talk to him and suggest things there. And the thing is that Vince will sometimes accept the very ideas that creative said Vince wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of Vince is the be all end all opinion of what happens, but then again, from what I've heard, he's built this little bubble around him that he's had since the Attitude Era. And since WCW went down, he's lived in this little bubble and stays inside it and doesn't acknowledge anything outside of that world.
Right.
He takes a very Don Quixote way of looking at things. Oh, another reference.
Classic literature references. We got him.
Where he literally sees the world, and the wrestling world in particular, and how the audience reacts in one particular way, and any deviation from that, he either dismisses completely because it doesn't coincide with his way of thinking, or it completely fucks him over that depending on how desperate it's getting, he starts he maybe cracks to reality for a couple of minutes, but his world starts to shatter. Like, he thinks the audience still think a certain way. Like, again, he had to be convinced that Daniel Bryan was over.
I think he's just set in his ways, to be honest.
Yeah, he's set in a way of thinking, and he doesn't like any deviation from that.
Yeah. Well, that seems to be the consensus, is that Vince likes to stay the same course. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And apparently Paul Heyman has got into a lot of arguments with him about that.
Oh, God, yeah. They've argued for quite a while over a lot of the things, and it's caused Heyman to leave on several occasions. Say what you want about Paul Heyman. He's great at creating a storyline and everything, but Paul Heyman also accepts that the world around him has changed. And the thing is, Hulk Hogan, for example, Hogan worked for the 80s.
Yeah.
Then when the 90s came along, the problem they had with Hogan, and the reason the NWO happened to begin with, was literally because Hogan's shtick wasn't working in WCW, because they were trying everything. They had big men that he would beat, like the Dungeon of Doom. They'd have him win the world title. They brought in Mr. T. They did everything that worked in the 80s, and it didn't work now because the fans had grown used to his shtick and weren't buying it.
Yep.
So they had to try something new. And the thing is, Vince thinks that you need a big wrestler, of a certain look to work.
Yeah.
Just remember, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were not, if he had his way, would not have been in the main event and would never have won the world title at all if he thought he could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because Hogan kept him that Bret was too small.
Yep. And it turned out people didn't care.
Yeah, that's the thing. Shawn Michaels is now, I mean, they use the argument now that, oh, well, if you want to go on about how about we don't let small guys go on, and then they name all these people, it's like, yeah, but they were the champions due to circumstances of your bad booking, effectively. Sean only got the belt because there was no one else to hold it. But him and Brett,
They didn't get the belt because of you. They got the belt despite you.
that's literally it. These small people got it. I mean, look at how much resistance he gave to Rey Mysterio.
Oh God. Oh God. Rey Mysterio's World Heavyweight title reign. Oh,
Eddie
that is
Guerrero got
tragic.
Eddie Guerrero got the title because Brock was fucking off. And they needed a veteran to hold it.
Actually, Randy Orton even mentioned it this week. Kofi's only in the position he's in because Ali got injured.
Ow.
Oh, so it's very apropos you mentioned that. And we're at the 54 minutes mark, so is there anything really of substance more to say?
Well, the only thing I can really say is that Raw just felt like it's skippable. It was skippable this week. I mean, for the nostalgia,
What's the highlights, of course, but
yeah. Well, obviously, you don't get me wrong. The 24/7 title was more interesting in the 3 hours than it's been in the last few months.
Yeah, that's your opinion. I like the 24/7 title thing.
I know
Although
you.
there is stuff,
I know you do.
there's stuff. I've got to say this. What the hell is the point of this Mike Kanellis stuff? Who does this help? What is the end goal here?
There is none. To be honest, I've told you before that you may not remember this one, but years ago there was a storyline where one of the wrestlers was pregnant and stuff, and they basically made an entire storyline with a guy called Meat, who was just Sean Stasiak.
Yeah.
Now the storyline was that he was with these women called PMS. Look into that one.
Of course.
And they basically would physically abuse him and everything, and basically it would be abuse of the male, basically. And every time he fucked something up, he'd get abused. And if he talked up about it, the women would then pretend that they, that he'd attacked them, so he'd get beaten up by the other guys. Whereas generally the storyline, or one of them would get pregnant or something or other, and they'd spend their time abusing the male who, by all rights, couldn't fight back. And that's all this is. It's just a retread of an Attitude Era storyline that nobody liked.
Right. Oh, God. And it's cringeworthy to watch. Like,
Yeah. Well, hold on, let's see. Corey Graves wasn't on SmackDown. I honestly forgotten. WWE is considering an NXT Canada brand. Why?
Cool. I mean, again, cool, but why?
Jimmy Uso's been released from prison.
Was it Jimmy? I thought it was Jay.
Apparently it's Jimmy.
Oh. Okay, sorry, I had the wrong Uso.
Yeah, well, they both look alike.
Well, they are twins.
Yeah. See, it's not a race thing, it's literally a birth thing.
Oh, yeah, they brought out Rikishi on Raw. That was cool.
Yeah, it's a shame that that Brian Christopher's dead. I mean, I actually looked through his career shortly after I found out he was dead. It turns out that The Rock really should have thanked him a lot more than anyone else for him getting, learning how to wrestle. He spent a lot of time in WWE's developmental brand at the time in where is it? Where is it that Jerry Law Memphis? That's it. The Memphis brand, which is also where Daniel Bryan spent his time training.
Right.
And apparently Brian Christopher basically trained The Rock on how to do a lot of the stuff that he ended up doing in WWE.
Right. Okay, so we're coming near the hour mark. Does anybody have any closing remarks? Sam, Ian, what you got?
Well, all I've got at this point is Raw was pretty fun for the small bit, but it offered nothing to the overall brand. It was nice to see certain people I hadn't seen in a very long time. That it was actually pretty fun for the short run for what it was. SmackDown had a few good segments, but overall, it's not really. SummerSlam really isn't shaping up to be a very interesting pay-per-view unless some very big shenanigans happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really all I have to say on this week's wrestling, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait until the build-up and see what happens. Ian, what are your closing remarks?
Well, Raw's only been like a reunion show, and SmackDown SmackDown only had one good thing about it, and that was the whole Bray Wyatt and Finn Balor thing.
Yeah, okay. Right, so... Not looking great for SummerSlam, then, is your...
Basically, we might get some fun stuff out of the Finn Balor Fiend match.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, here's a question. How long do you think SummerSlam's going to be?
Oh God! They like to do the 7 hours thing, so I'm saying a day.
I don't think they're going to do that this time, because there have been reports that have come out since WrestleMania that they've realised that 8 hours is too long.
That's for everyone. I mean, look what happened at the Saudi Arabia show. Everyone was half dead.
Yeah. Anyway, dudes, we're now hitting the hour mark, so all your names and where they can find you are on the screen. Yeah, thanks for joining us for this podcast. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.